Good morning. So it is morning. I just said to Mario, I said, I think this is the kind of feel you can expect when both Pastor Hoyt and Pastor Hooker are gone. It kind of feels like the kids are playing. So Happy New Year. Thanks for being here. Many of you, this is your church. Some of you, maybe you're here visiting with family you're in town for, or maybe some of you are here this morning and one of your New Year's resolutions is to be at church more. Regardless of why you're here, I'm just so glad you are. I'm excited to be with you this morning. It's hard to believe that it's already 2017. I am definitely one of those who slept in the new year. All the people around me decided that they were going to celebrate New Year's with fireworks, both with New York at 11 p.m. our time and Nebraska at midnight our time. So I was woke up twice. But glad to be here nonetheless, and glad you're here as well. I want to talk about something this morning that might be a little bit awkward, as I like to do, potentially even controversial, uncomfortable. Something that I think we don't talk much about, and I really hope that it really kind of resonates and actually messes with you enough that it may have you think about how you're going to approach this week, this month, and even this new year. Typically, there's a Sunday after Christmas, and there's a Sunday that starts the new year. This is one of those unique weeks or years that it's both. So we have this look back on 2016 thing happening this morning and this look forward on 2017. And what I happen to know is probably about half of you in here, you're big New Year's resolution people and you love to make plans and set goals, and this is a great time to do that, and that's awesome. And then there's others of you that think that's stupid and lame and know everybody's not going to fulfill them. You're like, what's the point? And then there's a small third group that you're like, I set goals regularly, son, and accomplish them. And I set one in November 13th and I'm almost there, and that's awesome too. But wherever you're at with this, I'm going to go through more scripture maybe than I typically do, and so I would encourage you to take notes, and if you don't have time to write all the notes or the copy and paste, I would encourage you to at least get the references and maybe go back over this week or this month and just see what God has to say about how we live our lives. And so, as I like to do, I'd like to start this year at the beginning of the story of the Bible. Sometimes when I read the Bible, I think of God as a father who's writing a letter to his children, but sometimes I like to look at the Bible as God as an author. And if you've ever read or written a book, authors are very intentional about key things and people that they put in the beginning to tell you what it's about. And I think Genesis 1, 2, and 3 is loaded with a lot of things that if we miss, we kind of can miss some things that the story is about. But there's one key thing in here that we see in the beginning that I think that we miss out on and that God would have for us this morning. So let's pray, and I'm going to pray that the word would come alive to you, and if you want and feel comfortable, just ask God to speak to you this morning, not through me necessarily, but through his word. Dip your heads if you would. Father, I'm going to preach your word the best I can, and I just pray that your word would come alive in people's hearts. I pray that you would encourage, challenge, equip, and even shape the way we think about the way we live our life. God, I thank you that from the beginning of the book to the life of Jesus to the end, that you came to give us and show us a way to live. And in John 10, you said it's the best possible way to live, the best way to go about living. And we want to do that as followers of Jesus and as Christians. And so we want your word to really shape our thinking and shape the way we live. God, I pray that for every heart that wants to hear you speak, that you would speak this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. So if you have your Bibles, I'm going to encourage you to go to Genesis chapter 1. We're going to read the very last verse and then a couple of verses into the second chapter. And so in the very beginning, God creates the entire world. He creates everything: night, day, dark, light, sand, land, water, sky, birds, fish, animals, man. He creates everything, and it takes him about a chapter to do it. And then it's interesting because it ends, Genesis 1 ends, and there's a couple verses in Genesis 2, and I'll just remind us that we're the ones that inserted chapters and verses to help us understand, but the original writers just wrote, actually Moses wrote this, I'll talk about that in a second, and so they wrote, and he went straight to Genesis 2, and so God has created the whole world, and I love to ask people this question when we get in dialogue about things. I love to ask the question, how many days did it take God to create the earth? To which you would answer what? I love it. Exactly. half the people are like, this might be one of those trick questions. The other half of the half that answer it say 6, and the other half of the half say 7. So which is it? Did it take God 6 days or did it take him 7? Well, the Bible says it takes him 7, but he only did work for 6, and I believe that right there indicates the problem and one of the challenges we have to confront as a society. Because the Bible could have been written, and it could say, in 6 days God created everything, right? But that's not how it goes. Creation is a 7-day picture and story, and I think if we miss this, we miss some really important things. And so I'm going to invite you to go to verse 31, the very last verse of Genesis chapter 1. It says, after God has created everything, it says this: God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning at the 6th day. And if you go right to chapter 2, verse 1, it says this: thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all of their vast array, meaning, man, it's just all done, it's there. And then it says this, verse 2, by the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day, made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Now this is interesting because we can say it took God 6 days to create the world, but the creation story is 7 days, right? Because on the 7th day, God what? God what? I want to talk about that this morning a little bit, among other things. God rested. Now, it's important when you read the Bible that we don't make words mean what we think they mean, but we know they mean what the writer meant and what God meant when he wrote them. And so, for us, we are finite, limited creatures, and so when we think of rest, we think of, I have worked 4 16-hour days in a row, I have took the kids to this, and this, I'm pooped, right? When it says God rested, music guys, you forgot this. There's my ADD just kicking in right there. When it says, I need this space. When it says God rested, he wasn't like, whoo, I'm pooped. Those mountains just took it way more out of me than I thought it would. Who knew there was going to be that much water in the oceans? I'm exhausted. That is not what it means when it says God rested. What the original language means is when it says God rested from his work, it means he stopped. It means he stopped working. Why is this important? In the beginning of the story, and in the beginning of creation, we see how God made things to be and how he made things to operate and function optimally. Does that make sense? There is a way that things are that God created them. And we have, as humans, been given free will and choice. So we have two options. We can do our best to live in the way God created things to be, or we could do it a different way. But what God knows is that when we try to do it our way, it doesn't usually work out as well for us. How many of you have ever experienced this in any area of your life? Yes, whether it be how you treat people, the way you handle money, your marriage, you name it, attitudes. There is a way that God created, and we see in Genesis when God created the universe to be and go a certain way. And this is how he created it. 6 days you will work, 1 day you will rest. Then 6 days you will work, then 1 day you will rest, then 6 days you'll work, then 1 day you rest. There is a pattern, a rhythm, if you will, of 6 and 1, 6 and 1, 6 and 1, go, rest, go, rest. You see that in the very beginning of the story. In fact, if you read later on, when God is commanding the people how to live, Moses spent time, God's given him the law and he's given him the commandments. He actually says the exact same thing, not just for humans, but for the ground. He says, 6 years you are to plant your crops, but on the 7th year you are to give the ground rest. On the 6th year, I will give you enough crops so that if you store it, you'll have enough to eat in the 7th year and the 6th year, but on the 7th year, let the ground rest. And it's interesting because we have, through farm and agronomy and all that we've studied, we've learned now that actual farmland does better if it gets a break. So you have farmers who do this lot and this lot and this lot, and then this year they take this break and then they replant there. Why? We are learning what God said in the very beginning of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, that nothing is meant to keep going. 6 and 1, 6 and 1. So then what happens is in Exodus chapter 20, I'm going to jump to Exodus 20, which is the Ten Commandments. Here's the couple fascinating things about the Ten Commandments. This is a 40-day conversation between Moses and God. There's 2,500 years of human history that has happened from Adam in Genesis 1 to Exodus 20, and God tells Moses, come up to the mountain. He spends 40 days there, and he doesn't just write the Ten Commandments, but God tells Moses what to write, and he writes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, which we refer to as the Pentateuch or the law. The Jews would refer to it more probably as the Torah. So Moses and God are having this conversation, and we get the 2,500 years later, this is where we get the written commandments, partly because it was the first time God and Moses had talked about writing things down. It's also partly because this is about the time in Egypt when written languages became a thing. But it's important for us to understand that the people in the Old Testament, the people in Exodus, they viewed the Ten Commandments very differently than we did. To us, it's easy to look at this as a bunch of rules and do's and don'ts and don't tell me how to live. But they actually viewed it that our Heavenly Father has loved us so much that he has sent us his words to teach us the best possible way to live. Very similar to what Jesus said in John chapter 10. He's talking about a thief and a gate, and he says, John 10:10 says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come to give what? Life, and life abundantly, or life to the full. The meaning, the feel of that language is not just, I came to give you a good life, but Jesus is literally saying, I came to show you and teach you the best possible way to live. I want to show you how to live according to the way God made things to be, not the way you think they are or you think is best. And we can live according to these rhythms and ordinances of God, or we can live outside of them, and God will let us pick, but he knows there are effects and consequences, good and bad, to which we choose. So Moses is having this conversation, and God says, hey, here's the Ten Commandments, write them down. But it's really interesting because the Ten Commandments, and it's important for us to remember that this is a whole thing that's about how to live, but it starts with grace and mercy. Because the Ten Commandments don't start with don't steal, don't kill, don't covet. It starts with this. I am the Lord your God, so there's possessive, I'm your Lord, who brought you out of Egypt. So they had been enslaved for almost 500 years by the Egyptians. God says slavery is no good, inequality is no good, treating one group of people over another differently is no good. That's not my intended way. That's no good. Remember what I did? Remember how I exited you out of slavery and into freedom? I'm introducing my law as remember that I'm the Lord your God who took you from slavery into freedom. Now, let me teach you how to live in freedom. Because for 500 years, they'd only known how to live in what? Slavery. Let me teach you how to live as free people. Here's 10 commandments, but he starts with, I'm the Lord who's delivered you from Egypt. And then he goes through these 10 commandments. And right in the middle of this, verse 8, is a commandment that honestly is probably the least thought about. We don't talk about it a lot, and it's one I want to talk a little bit about this morning. Verse 8, if you're following along, Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 through 11, says this. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor. How many days? 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male, nor your female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. 11, verse 11. And verse 11 is a direct reference to Genesis chapter 2, or Genesis 1. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. God is talking to Moses, and God refers to Genesis chapter 1. 6 days I work, 1 day I rested. 6 and 1, 6 and 1. I created a pattern of work, go, rest. Work, go, rest. The world was made in 6 days, then 1, resting. This is the pattern he made, and we live according. This is how the universe was made. It's how we are wired. It's how the ground is made. There's this pattern that we live to, 6 and 1, 6 and 1, 6 and 1. And we don't do it because of an odd religious reason. We don't do it to follow the rules so God will love us more. We do it because it's the way God made things to be, and we want to live according to how God made things to be. You with me? My voice is getting... So, when I was younger, a couple of my friends started learning, when I was in high school, they started playing and learning the drums. And so, as a good friend, I thought I wanted to learn the drums as well. I had my friend who was teaching himself give me one lesson. So I learned enough that I could sit down at a drum, and if it was a full set, this is kind of our ghetto, missing some stuff set. I could sit down just long enough that if you were to walk through the sanctuary while I was banging around, you go, oh, I didn't know Cory played drums. Oh, I don't. But I could trick you into it. Just like piano or guitar, I can play about 3 things on it. So I had Byron show me some things. Hey, how does drums work? And so it was like this. So I learned, first I realized that there were 2 really key ingredients to playing the drums. You all are smiling, like, I have no idea how this is going to go. Or either that or you're just nervous that a guy with my energy has a drum set at his disposal. Either way, it's going to be fun. Happy New Year. So I learned that there's 2 things that are really key to playing drums. Number 1, drumsticks, right? And number 2, drums. So when you have drumsticks and you have drums, you should be able to play drums, right? How many of you are like, dear God, make it stop? That was rhetorical, left side, okay? You don't need to raise your hand on that. Let's pray, I'm out. No, I'm just kidding. So I quickly learned that there's a 3rd thing required to play drums. It's called rhythm. Also required to dance. I'm as good at dancing as I am at the drums. But it's interesting to me that with rhythm, I got good hands. I can hit the exact same, I feel like the anointing of God is on me to play the drums. I've never done this good. No, I'm just kidding. I can hit the exact same sound but if I do it with a little bit of rhythm, oh, you want a 6 count? If I do it with a little bit of rhythm, the exact same noises stop sounding less like noise and start sounding more like music. The exact same, in the right order, in the right rhythm, stops being like, who is building a shed? And, oh, I didn't know Cory could play the drums. These 2 are missing. The exact same. No, please do not clap for that. Because there's a key ingredient in music that you learn really quickly that makes the difference between noise and music, and it's called rest. Rhythm is all about when to be on and when to be off, when to make noise and when to be silent, when to say yes to one more thing and when to say no, I can't, our schedule's just too full. Rhythm is about being on at the right times and off at the right times. Now my daughter, who's 5, is starting to take piano lessons. She's already better than me. And we've had a piano at our house, and when she was young, it sounded something like this. I feel when I do that with my fingers, I feel like I'm doing something awesome, but then I hear it and I'm like, oh man, what's the difference between that? So the same thing is true with piano. It's like Mario running through a cave with a star or something. you can make, it's interesting to me that I can hit the exact same keys as these, but I do them in rhythm with some rests, and it sounds something more like, same exact notes. Same exact notes. This, same keys, same notes. This. Oh, see, I missed it. Same exact notes. Those were the same notes. One is loud, obnoxious, no one wants to hear it noise. And one is beautiful music. At least that's how it was intended when it was written. When you think of the rhythm of your life, does it sound more like noise? Or does it sound like music? Is it a beautiful song? When you think about being the drummer of your own life. Now, it's interesting, I've never been in a band, and you can now tell why. But in a band, arguably the drummer is the most important, right? I'm looking at Jay Blaney, he plays drums. If the drummer gets off, everybody gets off, right? And some of us, this is probably more how we start our lives, or we hit our lives. But as I have a tendency to do, the same rhythm but we pump up the pace, pump up the tempo, and all of a sudden, everybody's tired and burned out. In Genesis 1, in Leviticus, in the Gospels, in the creation of the church, we see the same pattern throughout the entire Word of God, that God is all about, I created you to live and have and find rhythm where you would be able to find rest and be refreshed and not be tired all the time. I mean, how many of you, the most common answer you get when you say, hey, how's it going? You're going to get one of two answers. I'm busy or I'm tired. Busy, tired, busy, tired, busy, tired, busy, tired. Hey, way to live the gospel, guys. I would want to be one of God's people, but they're always busy and tired. Well, we laugh, but that's our reality, some of us. Is my life more like noise or less like music? Do you go and go and go and go and feel more like a machine to produce and produce and produce and produce and produce? Or do you have a nice rhythm of go, rest, go, rest? See, I think one of the reasons God did this at the very beginning of time, how he created things to be, was he never wanted us to be confused about that his love for us had anything to do with our ability to produce. So he said, go, work, pause. Go, work, pause. Go, rest. But God, I could get so much more done on my 7th day, 3 a.m., blah, blah, blah. I know you could, and you will fry, and you will burn out, and you will be done, and you will be no good to anybody. Or you could live according to my rhythms, go, pause. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? God created people to live with rhythm. And when we don't find and live in that rhythm, we sound less like music and more like noise. Now, it's interesting because of all the people in the Bible who exemplified this, who do you think exemplified it the most? Jesus. Of course, that's the answer. We're in church. Jesus. But I want to show you several passages in the gospel that are a tad different than what maybe we're used to reading or seeing, because I think, yes, thank you. You guys are awesome. I think reading and seeing, we focus a lot on the do, go, be, more. And I love that parable, but like do a little bit and then have more. But there's also a balance to this where Jesus exemplified this. So I want us to look, we're going to look in Mark, we're going to look in Luke, we're going to look in Matthew. And Jesus, of all people that ever lived, had less of a problem saying, nope, stop, can't, gotta go. And if you're not careful, you can miss it in the gospel and think that the whole gospel is about like, do more so I can love you and bless you. That's not what Jesus said. It's not what God said. It's not how he created the earth to be. So if you have your Bibles, go to Mark 1. Mark 1, verse 32 through 34. I'm just going to jump into these. It says this, that evening after sunset, the people brought Jesus, all the sick and demon-possessed. What a group of people to have brought to you, right? Hey, where's Pastor Mario? We found all the sick and demon-possessed. We've been looking all over for you. Right? Right? I think Dan Lewison's here. Dan, we found them. We found all of them. Here's the sick and demon-possessed. Have them all. What a great group. You know, it's like, hey, we're going to have a party, and we're going to bring all the demon-possessed and all the sick. Who's coming? Like, that is a draining group of people, right? So it says, they were brought to him. The whole town gathered at the door. Okay, so now it's like, if you're not demon-possessed or sick, you're like, you're there for the show. Oh, yeah, this is good. You literally have an entire village plugging into Jesus. Ever feel that way? Every kid, every boss, this, and then this, and I need this, and will you heal this, and this, and we got this, and then we got the thing, and then we got the thing after the thing, and don't forget the celebration thing, and who's going to pick up from soccer, and then the work thing, and then we got this Christmas party this night. Some of you, this was your last 3 weeks. We have this Christmas party this night, and this Christmas party this night, and this Christmas party this night, and this Christmas party this night. And you know what Jesus would have said? Like, just say no. But we, in our culture more than any culture probably in the history of the world, does not value or understand rhythm. We don't like to say no. We don't like to say I can't. So it says, they brought everybody to him. The whole town gathered, and it said, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out the demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. The most draining group of people, and he's giving, and he's producing, and he's working, and he's killing it, and he's ministering, and he's being Jesus, and it's awesome. He's like, I win, I'm bigger than the devil, it's awesome. And then verse 35 happens. It says, very early the next morning while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, went off to a solitary place where he prayed. It's interesting that the next day, after giving everything he had, Jesus does not get up and go do it all over again. He doesn't go, all right, let's go again. He says, I know me. I'm fully God, but I'm also fully human. I'm limited as I'm a human. I know how my Father created this, 6 in 1, work then rest. I need rest. So it says, before everybody got up, he woke up, he went off to himself, and he prayed. He got refreshed in the presence of God. He got away, solitary. Interesting. And then it's so funny because in verse 36 it says, Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, everyone is looking for you. Well, of course they are. Jesus, you aren't done. There's more to do. Everybody's looking. Where'd you go? Jesus, there's more to do. And you know what Jesus' reply is? This is in the gospel. Verse 38. We have somewhere else to go. Let's go. Wait, what? Jesus didn't, no. Jesus, everybody's looking for you, the rest of the town. He's like, actually, we can't. We're not. We're going to go somewhere else. We're going to get in a boat, and we're all going to get refreshed on that boat ride across the sea. And I'm going to preach a different message to a different group of people, because that's what I came to do. So that's Mark 6. Mark 1, Jesus exemplifies this. Now look in Mark 6. Jesus had just sent out his disciples to go do work. So now he's been an example. Now he's going to show his disciples. In Mark 6, he's like, go do the work. And it says they all came back, and they told him all that they had done. Oh, yeah, this is the one I forgot to put in my notes. Oh, yeah, they got it. Cool. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done. So he sent them out, and now they're back, and they're like, guess what we did? Next verse. It says, then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Verse 32. So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. Same thing. Jesus says, go minister, and then they come back, and and you ever been, like, done ministry or done a mission trip or done something, you're like, fired up, let's go. And they're like, Jesus, we did this, and we healed this, and then cast out, and da-da-da-da. He's like, okay, cool. I know you guys have been going hard. I know you're fired up because you're on a spiritual high, but physically you're about to burn out and fry. Let's get on the boat, and we got to go. I got to feed you. You need some rest, and we need to get some alone time before we do this again. So in chapter 1, he is an example of it. In chapter 6, now he's teaching his followers how to do it. Jump to Luke 15. Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5. So he's doing his thing, and it says in verse 15, yet news about him spread all the more so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. Crowds followed him everywhere. And then verse 16, what does it say? But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Now, by the way, the people who wrote these books are master storytellers. They didn't just randomly put stuff in there. So they're being very intentional to let us know that times right before or times right after or both, when Jesus gives of himself and does a crazy amount of ministry, he's very intentional to get away to a quiet, lonely, solitary place to get refreshed, to get energized, to get rest. They want you to link these ideas. Give, rest. Go, rest. Produce, stop. I think even that whole produce, stop thing is caught up in the ground itself. That God made it in the 6th year, if you read it in Leviticus, I think it's in Leviticus, where the 6th year the ground would produce so much that you'll have enough for this year and next year, if you save it, that the ground will get its rest. And it's so ironic. This is just my nerd brain. I told this to Master's Commission. But the 70 years, there's ideas in Jewish culture that the 70 years that they were in Babylon in slavery were to make up for the 490 years they broke that law, and they just sowed for 490 years, so the land got all its years back. It's crazy. That's just my numbers brain. Wherever Brian is should appreciate that. Matthew 14. Let's go down to Matthew 14. Verse 12 and 13. It says, when Jesus had heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. This has happened. Jesus has just found out that one of his best friends and his cousin, John the Baptist, died, was beheaded. Word comes to him, hey, John the Baptist is dead. Jesus, being a human, says, I need to grieve. I need to mourn. I'm not going to be available right now. We got to go. We can't. I got to stop. There's actually in Luke, there's a point where he's in a house and they bring the entire city to him, and he says, actually, I got to go. Can't. Sorry. It's so ironic to me that in the Gospels, you see that of all the people who've ever lived that never had a Messiah complex, it was the Messiah. He knew when to be on and when to be off. He knew when to hit and when to rest. He made beautiful music with his life, and he accomplished more in 3 years than arguably any human, and he spent a lot of that time by himself, resting, refreshing, and praying. Jesus, let me say that again. Jesus had 3 years to change the world and spent a lot of his time resting, refreshing, and praying, and still got more done than most of us will in our lifetime. What kind of example has he set for us? Privately, solitary. Jesus has these rhythms that he lives according to, and not everybody around it understands. What do you mean we got to go? What do you mean we can't? What do you mean? There's a point, a woman at the well. It says that he was so tired from the journey, he sent the disciples on, and he's like, I got to hang back. Like, I can't go anymore. Not everybody understood or could get down with his rhythms. They weren't even necessarily in sync with those that were following him sometimes. We have to remember that Jesus lived in a culture where rhythm was key and essential part of living. We do not understand this. So I want to take your attention back to the Old Testament. There's no better way, in my opinion, to start a new year than start reading Leviticus. So I'm going to invite you to go to Leviticus 23. That was a joke. No one ever reads Leviticus. No one knows what it says. They just know it's weird. Leviticus is one of the books that Moses got from God. It was really how God's people could separate themselves and be God's holy people and be cleansed, and how to keep sin out of the camp and be with. It's really fascinating when you understand why and how it's written. But there's this chapter in Leviticus, chapter 23, that outlines this even in the beginning of time. It's like, well, that's good for Jesus, but what about, Sabbath? And again, I hope you hear what I'm saying. I'm not even asking, hey, what one day a week do you do nothing? That's not what I'm saying. The point of today and the point of even the question to ask ourselves this year is, how are we doing with the rhythm we're living at? Is it sustainable? What's your beat like? Does your life, when you evaluate it, does it sound more like music? Or does it sound more like noise? Got to go and got to get in there, got to do, and they got to produce, I got one more thing, got to send one more email, one more text message, and my phone has to always be on me, and I have to respond to everything right away, and I have to give and give and give and give and give and give, and I wake up, and how you doing? I'm busy, I'm tired, I'm busy, I'm tired, I'm busy, I'm tired, I'm busy, I'm tired, I'm busy, I'm tired. Like, oh, well, I'd like to hang out sometime when you're not busy and tired. And we can't be the church because we're too busy producing. Ironic. I'm guilty too. So Leviticus 23 basically is fascinating because you don't understand all the imagery probably, but it outlines 7 feasts that the Jewish people, the Israelites, the people of God, were commanded to celebrate every year. Okay, why is that important, significant? God commanded his people 7 times every year, stop what you're doing and have a festival or feast. Feast is Old Testament for celebrate and party. Because they would have a sacrifice, they take an animal, they kill it, they trim the fat, the blood on the altar. Well, guess what they did with that after the sacrifice? It's what we call barbecue. It's like, I'll get the ribs, you get the, you get this, I'll get the hind quarter. Like, they grilled out. Leviticus 33, 7 times a year, or 23, Leviticus 23, 7 times a year, they were commanded, stop what you're doing and have a festival so that you can rest, you can celebrate, you can party, you can be with friends and family, you can refresh, so that you can remember that I've delivered you out of Egypt and I have a way to live according to my rhythms that's better than the way everybody else is offering, and you can be refreshed and remember me, party. So let's just go through these. Leviticus 23. Now you're going to hear some redundant language. It's not because they forgot they already wrote it. They're outlining these different festivals, and I'm just going to jump around. Verse 3. By the way, some of these feasts, sometimes they were a day or sometimes they were a week. So even if you traveled there, it was even longer. So think about this. 7 times a year, at least a day, if not a week. And you're like, well, yeah, we have those. We call them holidays. Are your holidays festivals? Get up early, pack the cooler, get the boat, get sunburned, get fried, home later than we thought. Kids are whining. They got to go to bed. I got to get up at 6 a.m. That ain't a festival. I'm not saying don't do that. But let's not confuse that with rest. Rest is 4 ginger ales, sun, water, be with you in 6 hours. That's rest. Sometimes shooting things. Some of us live on farmland where we like to shoot things that move. That's restful. Coyotes, squirrels, rabbits. There are 6 days verse 3, when you may do work, but the 7th day is a day of Sabbath rest, day of sacred assembly. You are not to do any work wherever you live. It is a Sabbath to the Lord. So here in Leviticus, resting, partying, and celebrating is spiritual work. Well, I don't know how you got that. Well, it's in the Bible. I don't know about all that. We could be producing a lot more. Yeah, good luck with that. Let me know how that goes. I'll be resting, partying, and celebrating 7 times a year. Jump down to verses 7 and 8, a different festival. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly and don't do any work. For 7 days, present a food offering to the Lord for 7 days. So for 7 days, they present a food offering to the Lord. Guess what they do after that? Feast and celebrate. And on the 7th day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. Gosh, he's just telling them not to work a lot. What's the deal? Verse 24, jump down. Say to the Israelites, on the first day of the month, you are to have a day of a Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly commemorated with trumpet blasts. Jumping down to verse 29, those who do not deny themselves, this is pretty strong language. Those who do not deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. What? I will destroy from among them, I will destroy from among their people anyone who does any work on that day. You will do no work at all. This is to be a lasting ordinance for generations to come wherever you live. He says, if you don't deny yourself, if you keep working, I'm going to cut you off from your people. Well, someone's like, well, that's really mean. But isn't it true if we keep going, we will inherently cut ourselves off from our people without ever pausing, celebrating, resting? Verses 35 and 36. The first day is a sacred assembly. Do no regular work. Do no regular work. Do no regular work. Do no regular work. Do we see a rhythm and a pattern? For 7 days, present offerings for the Lord, and then on the 8th day, a sacred assembly and a food offering to the Lord. It is the closing of a special assembly. Do no regular work. It's the Sabbath. Celebrate this festival to the Lord for 7 days each year. So God is saying this to his people. This is basically what he's saying. So here's what you guys are going to do. Every year, I want a 7-day party. I want the best food. I want the best music. I want the best worship. I want your friends. I want your family. Bring everybody. And I don't want you to do anything other than worship me and have fun and remember that I am the God who rests and refreshes and rejuvenates. And if you keep going, you're going to fry yourself and burn yourself out. But if you do what I ask and you live according to my rhythms, how I created the universe and the world and you to be, you will find yourself going, how are you doing? What if, oh man, what if in 2017 someone says, hey, how's it going? You said, man, I'm rested. How you doing? Oh, I'm refreshed. How's things been going? Man, you know what? We got a lot going on, but I feel healthy. I'm refreshed. I'm rested. Wait a minute, you're not busy and tired? No. And I'm actually getting more done. I have been working on this for 12 years. Fail it a lot, but I continually get more done the more I do this. I have more energy, I'm more fully present, I have more emotional energy. And I know listen, I know how I come across here, because you all have asked me, and you're, how do you have so much energy? How do you do that? What's wrong with you? Like, you all have basically asked me that. I'm aware. I'm like, hey, you've never met my father, have you? He's 60, and I can barely keep up. He's preaching the same message at LifeGate today. I think I'm better at resting than most people. I'm better at saying no than most people. I go hard, but I rest hard. I do. I didn't do anything this week other than hang out with my family. I didn't feel obligated to look at one email. Some of you in this room have emails. I've seen your name pop up. I refuse to look at it. I didn't respond to very many texts. I left my phone in the room. I was very present with my daughter, my wife. We had this week off. I did what I had to do. I feel so refreshed, and I believe this is a word that God has for us as a church. Because this morning I came in and I said, Sabrina, she was running the nursery first service. She said, how you doing? She goes, man, I feel so refreshed. I got way more rest than I anticipated. I was talking to George who's running sound this morning. Man, I just had a couple weeks off. It was so good to just get rest and get refreshed. How many of you, just the sound, if you watch the countenance of people when they say the words, refreshed, rest, it's hard not to smile when you say that. It's very different than busy and tired. How you doing? Oh, I'm getting by. Listen, this isn't going to solve all of our problems. But how many days and years do you have to make up of refreshing and resting? What's the sound of your life sound like, the song? But a lot of this doesn't have to do with following rules. And if you're like me, it's not about following rules. It's the way you see God. Do you see God in heaven as a God who's going, do more, produce, go further, you can do it, vision. Or do you see a God who's like, go, rest, party, celebrate, go, rest, party, celebrate, go a little bit more, rest, go a little bit more, rest. I am a God who wants to rest you and refresh you, not get you to produce the most anybody has ever produced. Is he an image, do you think, of celebrating, resting, feasting, dancing, singing to him, and insisting that his people do? Our culture says, go, rest, go, rest, go, rest, go, rest. And you're just trying to make it to the next vacation, the next PTO. But God says, go, rest, celebrate, go, rest, refresh, celebrate, go, a little more, rest, refresh, celebrate, go, rest, refresh. If you don't, I'll kill you. Right? Someone's like, well, that's so mean. God wouldn't really kill us. No, he knows that if we don't, we'll kill ourselves far before he ever could. Because he's a loving God who wants to write a letter to teach his people the best way to live. Worship team, come on up. Maybe for some of you, Leviticus is a little extreme and intense and old. Maybe poetry is better. Well, Solomon, the author of Ecclesiastes, captures a similar concept that we are going to indulge in here in just one moment. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, this poetic expression of basically the same thing. Solomon writes, there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Think about seasons. What are seasons? Summer, fall, leaves start to fall. Winter, everything's die. Spring, new life. What are seasons? Rhythm. Sometimes I seriously don't wonder if God doesn't just dump 3 feet of snow on us just to go, I am going to make you stop. Stop it. Don't go to work. Go get the Wii controller, take your 8-year-old son downstairs and play Mario Kart, and don't feel bad that you liked it. Stop it. There's a time to be born and a time to die, verse 2 says. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to plant, to sow, to put more in, to get more, and a time to uproot. Here's what I've noticed about church, culture, our lives, our family. This is what I've noticed. We're really, really good at planting, but we almost never uproot. Which means we're constantly adding this thing and then that thing and that thing. And what are we going to do with this? And then we got to go do this, and she could do that, and then he's doing this, and we're going to do this, and we got this thing and this Christmas party, and then the work one, and I could do the second business job. It's online. It only takes 3 to 6 hours a day. We're so good at adding, but we are limited beings that have a capacity, and every time we add, we're not very good at going, well, what is on here that has to go? Like some of your closets, you've been putting clothes in there for years, but you haven't taken anything out, even though you haven't worn it for 5 years. All the ladies like, I know that's right. Here's a crazy prayer for 2017. God, what are some things you don't want me to do anymore? What kind of church is this? What are some things I need to take off my plate? In my life, in my marriage, in my ministry, in my parenting? Because every time we say yes to one thing, we're saying no to something else. Maybe it's time to uproot before you add one more thing. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. Again, we love to build, we never tear down. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and dance. A time to scatter stones and then gather them. Embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. I love in verse 7, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Is there a time when you just turn your cell phone off and you're unavailable? Sometimes the loudest thing we can experience in our life is silence because it's so foreign. And then we wonder why we're so off-centered and fried and burned out because we go and we go and we go. Time to be silent. When was the last time you just looked out a window and stared for like 20 minutes or an hour? That's ridiculous. Nobody does that. This is America. Maybe that's the problem. When are you unavailable? Time to be silent. Why else does this matter? Because some of us, maybe you're like me, like, man, what is God saying? God, like, I want to hear your voice. We ask that, and then we have like, go, do, drums, piano, blah, 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 and God would literally have to be like, hey, you've been asking about me. You're like, do you hear something? Let's go. God, where are you? I'm right. Like as soon as he starts to speak, we go to the next thing. What if we sat and journaled this year? What if we just let music play and sat for 10 or 15 minutes to start our day and didn't think, didn't pray, didn't worship? Oh my God, what? And just be. What if we cut out some noise so we can hear his voice? What if you came to the Inspire Night? That's why we have this Inspire Night Thursday night. And we have the week of prayer. It's going to be different than other weeks. We want to spend some time. We as a church have intentionally cut some things out of our calendar, leadership meetings and other things that were on our calendar, because we want to live this, not just preach it. And so we want to slow some things, we want to uproot some things and go, we're just going to seek God and get some refreshing and resting in January. And see if we can't produce more in February through December by not doing as much in January as we could if we would have grind. Get that grind, baby. Maybe not. Maybe we don't do one more rep and we take a day off and we can lift more in 2 days. That's how muscles work. Right, Coach Dunn? You can't go to the gym every day and do the same lifts. Got to take a break. Time to lift, time to rest. Watch this. Exodus chapter 23, verse 12. This is 3 chapters after the 10 Commandments. God's still talking to Moses up on the mountain. 6 days do your work. On the 7th day do no work, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, so that the slave born in your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Man, that sounds good. How you doing? I'm refreshed. How you doing, Patience? I'm refreshed. How you doing, Frank? I'm refreshed. How you doing, Angela? I'm refreshed. How you doing, Hope? Man, I'm rested. How you doing, Taylor family? I'm rested, even though my dad keeps using these dad things to teach me all this stuff. We're rested. Man, you know what? We didn't do anything last night. We cut out time. We played games. We turned the TV off. We put cell phones on the counter, and we just had a family night. That's what we do 2 or 3 times a week. Some of you are like, now that's why I know why you don't ever text me back. That's right. There's a time I'm on and a time I'm off. got to do it, because I got to go like 80 more years. And I need a beat and a pace that's sustainable. Is yours? Some questions to think about. Is this beat sustainable? Is the beat of my life, is this pace sustainable? Can you keep it up for the next 5 years, going the way you're going right now? Can you keep it up for the next 5 days? And is it the best beat possible? What kind of changes do I need to make maybe this year, this week, or whatever? What kind of changes do I need to make a beat that's more sustainable? When was the last time you just stared out a window in silence? When was the last time you turned everything off and just sat? When was the last time you laughed so hard you had tears coming out of your eyes? Sometimes you just need to watch the same stupid movie and invite the same 3 stupid friends and laugh at the same stupid parts. And go, this is my favorite part, and laugh like you've never seen it before. Why? You need to laugh. There's a time to laugh. Man, I want the joy of the Lord to be my strength. I want to bring fun and laughter where I go, because I think Jesus is awesome, and he's about laughing and refreshing. And when we do that, we can be, because Jesus didn't just rest the whole time, he got a lot done too. We talk about that all the time. Refreshed. You will be refreshed. Exodus 31:17, that on the 7th day, God rested and he was refreshed. So, what does the sound, what does the song of your life sound like? If you were to be honest with yourself today. I really pray and I hope that some of you, this really adjusts. It makes you reevaluate your calendar and your checkbook. Because sometimes you get asked to do one more thing and it's on Thursday night and you go, actually, we don't have anything Thursday night. We could do that. Just because you could doesn't always mean you should. Sometimes you need a Thursday night to grab Chick-fil-A and just hang out at home in your sweatpants. I would live in sweatpants if I could. I mean, I thought about wearing them today. That'd be perfect about resting. I was going to come in jammies. Rest. Doesn't just the thought of it like kind of go, in your soul? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take communion briefly. And if you'll indulge me, I'm going to ask you to do something that's really awkward for some of you. I said that in the first service. You should have seen their faces like, oh, man. We're going to take communion, and then I'm going to pray quickly. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Once we're done, I'm going to ask you to sit in your seat where you're at. And then I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to not think, not pray, not stand, not worship. And I just want the worship team to just to play a song over us for just a couple of minutes so that your soul can be refreshed. And some of you are already like, oh my God, this is going to be awkward. It's only awkward because it's foreign. And then I'm going to dismiss us in a minute. But I couldn't think of preaching and teaching this if I didn't give us a chance to experience it. So they're not going to sing. I don't want you to pray. Y'all hear me? Don't pray. Don't be thinking of stuff you can be praying about. Katie Peterson's laughing. Don't think or pray, Katie. When was the last time you had a pastor stand on a stage and say, don't pray and don't worship? Because it's spiritual. And I want you just to let your soul be refreshed as our worship team plays over us. I believe the chords to a good, good Father who wants you to be refreshed and energized, and that we would be masters of celebrating and partying and being together as much as we are as accomplishing and producing. I think we're better at doing things in our community and sending mission teams than we are at resting and refreshing. I just want balance. If you have your emblems, Jesus who exemplified this, I can't think of a better way to start the year. Jesus who exemplified this was sitting with his disciples, his best friends, people who would later start the church. And he said, hey, here's the bread. He broke it and he took it around and he said, take some and eat it. And every time you eat it, remember me. Remember what I'm doing for you. Remember the patterns of life that I've taught you to live. Let's take the bread as we remember Jesus' body broken for us. And then just like the bread, he took the cup and he passed it around and he said, this cup represents my blood, which will be shed for your sins, for our sins, the ones we've already committed and the ones that we're going to commit that he already knows about and he's already forgiven you for. He said, take it and drink it. And every time you drink it, may you remember me. I know you like to forget. So do this regularly. Let this be a rhythm and a pattern in your life that you do regularly. So every time you do, you remember me. So let's take the juice and remember Jesus and what he did for us. And I'm going to pray. And then when I'm done, I'm going to, please, if you can, close your eyes and just sit and be for a minute. Father, I thank you that just as important to you as producing and going is resting and refreshing and celebrating and feasting. And I pray that today would confront some of our lifestyles and have us reevaluate the pace that we live at, the things we do, and how we're going to go about our business this upcoming year. God, we're going to spend just a couple minutes just being refreshed. I pray that as this music is played over us, that you would refresh our souls and that we would walk out of here knowing that you want us to be full of life, full of joy, full of energy, and be refreshed. You're the best Father ever. How many of you would honestly admit that was really hard to do? To just not think, not pray. Thank you, Katie. Not worship. Yeah. Why? Because it's so foreign to us. How many of you, we were just getting to the point where we're like, I could do this for a while? Yeah. You know why? Because when you starve yourself from it, even the littlest bit goes the longest way. Maybe this is a good way to spend the first 5 or 10 minutes of your day. Put on some instrumental music before you pray and read your word, and engage your brain and just rest and be refreshed in the presence of God. Maybe it's a good way to end your day. See, today I made you do it, and that's what you're going to have to do, is you're going to have to make yourself do it, because there's always going to be 100 competing things that sound more noble than not producing. This is also why we're having our Inspire Night. It's going to be an awesome night Thursday night. We'd love to have you. We're going to spend a week of just prayer and worship and doing more of this. The week of the 15th, we would love to have you as many of the nights as you can come out. We just want to start January as a church in the rhythms of God. Thank you so much for being here. Happy New Year. I know some of us have a calendar to keep and places to go, so I want to make sure you can get there as fast as you can. I'm just kidding. I'm one of those. I'm going to meet some people for lunch as well. May you find the best rhythms of your life in 2017. God bless you. Thank you for being here.